didn't cry when the test turned positive. Not because I wasn't scared, but because my fear wasn't about becoming a mother. My fear was about who the father was. I was 26, financially independent, and not ashamed of being pregnant. But I was also a daughter in a strict South Asian household where reputation was treated like oxygen. You did mess up. You didn't create rumors. You did embarrass the family. And the man who got me pregnant wasn't just some boyfriend my parents could ignore. It was Ethan Zhang, the only son of Zhang Dominion Group, a corporate empire with hospitals, hotels, private jets, and board members who made decisions that showed up in newspapers. The kind of surname my parents said with a careful tone, like saying it too casually would be disrespectful. The worst part wasn't the pregnancy. The worst part was that my parents already thought I was a liar. My phone buzzed while I stood in the bathroom, still holding the test like it might change if I stared hard enough. A message from my mother appeared on the screen. "Come to the living room, now." No hearts, no smiley, no explanation, just a sentence that made my stomach drop. I washed my face, pulled on a loose sweatshirt, and walked downstairs slowly, like someone walking into a room where the verdict had already been decided. Everyone was there. My father sitting rigidly at the edge of the couch, jaw locked like a man preparing for war. My mother pacing with her arms crossed so tightly, it looked like she was holding herself together by force. My younger brother Armin sitting in the armchair, frozen, eyes darting between everyone like he wanted to disappear. And perched in the middle, calm as a queen at her own coronation, was my cousin Neela. Neela had always been sweet in public and poisonous in private. The kind of person who could compliment your dress while making sure everyone knew it was on sale. My mother pointed at her without even looking at me. "Tell them what you saw." Neela tilted her head, letting her eyes flick up to mine with a gleam that made me feel sick. "I saw Rena at Dominion Private Medical Center yesterday." My pulse slammed in my ears. That wasn't a normal hospital. That was Ethan's family's medical facility. The kind of place where half the floors were inaccessible without a coded badge, and the lobby looked more like a luxury hotel than healthcare. Neela continued, louder, enjoying the attention. "She was on the women's health floor. I saw the check-in screen. I saw the department. I'm not stupid." Then she paused just long enough to build the moment. "She's pregnant." For a second, nobody moved. Then the room erupted like a bomb went off. My mother made a sharp sound, halfway between a gasp and a sob. My father stood up so fast the coffee table shook. Armin's mouth opened, but no words came out. My father's voice cut through the chaos. "Is it true?" I swallowed, forcing air into my lungs. My hands were cold, but my spine stayed straight. "Yes." The word hung there. My mother's face crumpled, tears spilling instantly. "Who is it?" she whispered, like saying it louder would make it real. I didn't hesitate. I didn't soften it. I didn't prepare them gently because they had already decided to attack. "Ethan Zhang is the father." Neela laughed, not a surprised laugh, not an awkward laugh. A sharp, cruel laugh like she'd been waiting for the chance. "Ethan Zhang?" she repeated. "Please, that family doesn't even shake hands with people like us." My father's face darkened. "Enough." He pointed at me like I was a stranger who'd walked into his home. "You expect us to believe you're secretly dating the heir to Dominion Group?" "We've been together over a year," I said. My voice shook, but I didn't look away. "We kept it private because of his family's high profile and security concerns." My mother wiped her face with shaking fingers. "A year, and you never told us?" "I tried," I said, the truth burning. "Every time I brought up anything about my life, it turned into a lecture. I knew you'd de-judge it before you understood it." Neela leaned forward, eyes bright. "Private?" she said. "You mean imaginary." Then she added casually, like she was talking about the weather. "I've seen you having lunch near the old neighborhood store with that delivery guy. That's probably the father. Now you're using a rich man's name to cover your shame." The delivery guy had been Ethan's executive assistant delivering contracts and documents for a youth initiative Ethan and I were building. But of course, my family didn't care about details. They cared about what fit the story they already wanted. I reached for my phone. "I'll call him," I said. "He'll explain." My father snatched the phone from my hand and tossed it onto the couch like it was contaminated. "No." My mother's voice rose, frantic. "Rena, please, just tell us the truth. Just say who the man really is." My chest tightened, frustration and heartbreak mixing until I could taste it. "I am telling you the truth," I said. "Ethan Zhang is the father." My father's face twisted with anger. "You think lying bigger makes it believable?" "I'm not lying." My mother's sobs grew louder. "You're ruining us," she cried. "Do you understand what people will say?" My father slammed his palm on the table so hard the cup rattled. "Pack your things." I stared at him. "Dad," he didn't let me finish. "I will not have dishonor under my roof," he said. "Not with a baby and a fantasy story attached." My mother grabbed my wrist, not gently, not lovingly. "Go," she said, voice raw. "Until you're ready to admit the truth, you're not staying here." In that moment, something inside me went quiet, not the pain. The pain was loud, but the part of me that kept hoping they would choose me over appearances. That part went silent. I walked upstairs, packed without really seeing what I was doing, and came back down carrying my suitcase like a stranger in my own home. Nobody stopped me. Nobody apologized. Neela watched the entire thing like it was entertainment. An hour later, I sat in my car at the curb, hands locked on the steering wheel, breathing like I'd just run from a fire. My suitcase landed in the trunk with a dull thud. Armin stood there, eyes red. He glanced back at the house like he was afraid someone might see him being human. Then he leaned closer and whispered, fast and urgent, "I believe you." I turned to him, stunned. He swallowed, his voice shaking. "Neela hates you. She always has. And Mom and Dad, they think controlling you is the same as loving you." Tears finally spilled down my face. "Don't fight them," I said. "I don't want you dragged into this." He shook his head. "You're my sister," he said. "That's all I need." He hugged me quickly, tight, then stepped back like the moment was dangerous. I drove away, blinking through tears until the streetlights became blurry streaks. At the next red light, my hands moved without thinking. I reached into the glove compartment and pulled out the second phone. The secure one Ethan had given me for emergencies. I pressed his name. He answered immediately. "Rena?" His voice was warm, normal, like he expected me to ask what he wanted for dinner. "Everything okay?" My throat tightened. "They know," I said. "Neela saw me at the hospital." My parents didn't believe me. They threw me out. The silence on the line wasn't empty. It was heavy. When Ethan spoke again, his voice was calm in a way that was almost frightening. "They threw you out?" I couldn't even answer properly. I just breathed. "Where are you?" he asked. "Driving," I said. "I was going to stay with my friend." "No," he said immediately. "Come to me now." I hesitated. "The board," I whispered. "Your family, the acquisition announcement next month, forget it," he said. And there was something underneath his words I rarely heard. Fear. "You're carrying my child. I'm not letting you do this alone." I pulled over into an empty parking lot and finally let myself break. The tears came hard, loud, unstoppable. "I thought they'd believe me," I choked out. "I thought they'd be mad, but I didn't think they'd just throw me away." Ethan exhaled sharply. "They're going to regret it," he said, voice low. "But first, you're coming home." When I arrived at his building, security recognized me instantly. The elevator opened directly into his apartment, and Ethan was already waiting at the door. No speeches. No drama. He took my suitcase in one hand and touched my face with the other, scanning me like he was checking for injuries. "You're shaking," he said. "I'm fine," I lied. He pulled me into his chest. "You're not fine," he said softly, "but you're safe." That night I didn't sleep much. Betrayal has its own kind of insomnia. In the morning, Ethan sat across from me at the kitchen island, a laptop open, phone beside it, his expression focused. "I want a paternity confirmation test," he said. I blinked. The words hit my insecurity before my logic caught up. "You don't believe me?" His eyes softened instantly. "I believe you," he said, firm, "but your family won't, and the media definitely won't. If we go public, I want there to be no space for anyone to twist this." He reached across the counter and squeezed my hand. "And Rena," he added, voice tightening, "I'm not letting anyone humiliate you again." The days in his penthouse felt like stepping into a world that ran on different rules. In my parents' home, love came with conditions. In Ethan's, love came with protection and respect. Not control, not ownership, support. He didn't hide me away like I was a scandal. He treated me like a partner. I kept working because I needed to. I wasn't the type to collapse into someone else's life and wait to be rescued. For months, Ethan and I had been quietly building something. A youth initiative designed to fund scholarships and create mentorship pathways for students with talent, but no resources. I used to tell my parents I wanted to build programs and community projects, not inherit the family grocery business. They called it childish, a hobby, a waste of my degree. Ethan never called it that. He called it a structure, a system, a future. One afternoon, his assistant came in with a message. "Mr. Zhang," she said carefully, "your mother called again. She demanded to speak to Rena." She says your girlfriend is spreading lies using your family name. Ethan's expression went blank. He looked at me. Do you want me to handle it? He asked. I thought about my mother's tears, my father's rage, the way they grabbed my wrist like I was property. And I thought about Neela's smile. No, I said quietly. I want them to hear the truth in a place they can't shout over it. 2 weeks after I was kicked out, Ethan's family hosted its annual business gala at the Dominion Grand Hotel. It was the kind of event where the ballroom had crystal chandeliers and the guest list looked like a Forbes article. Ethan looked at me one morning while I reviewed scholarship applications. Are you ready? He asked. For what? To stop being treated like a rumor, he said. I inhaled slowly, feeling the baby shift like it was listening. Yes, I said, but I want to send something first. A courier delivered an envelope to my parents' home. Inside was a formal invitation with their names printed in embossed gold, and a handwritten note, simple and cold. If you want the truth, come listen to it in front of everyone. The night of the gala, my dress was custom made. It wasn't flashy. It was elegant and structured, the kind of gown that said I belonged in the room without screaming for attention. Ethan stood behind me, adjusting the clasp of my necklace with careful fingers. They arrived, he said, glancing at his phone. Your parents, your brother, and Neela. My stomach tightened. Good, I said. Let them sit with their certainty for a while. Backstage, I watched them from the shadows. My mother looked uncomfortable, clutching her purse. My father stared straight ahead like he was preparing for humiliation. Armin looked tense, his eyes scanning the room. Neela kept craning her neck, searching for the heir himself like she expected to catch him and prove he wasn't real. The lights shifted. The music softened. A spotlight fell on the stage. Ethan's father, Victor Zhang, stepped to the microphone. Good evening, he said smoothly. Tonight we celebrate new partnerships, new commitments, and a future we are building together. He paused, letting the room settle. And speaking of commitments, my son has asked for my blessing. The ballroom murmured instantly. People leaned forward, phones subtly lifted. Victor smiled. He has chosen a woman of intelligence, grit, and vision. Someone who has worked beside him, not behind him. My heart hammered. Then Victor's voice carried clear across the room. Please welcome Ethan Zhang and his fiancée, Rina Sen. Ethan reached for my hand. And we walked out into the light. The room erupted. Gasps rolled like a wave. Cameras flashed. People whispered so loudly it sounded like rain. I didn't look at anyone at first, but my eyes still found my family's table. My mother's mouth fell open. Her eyes filled instantly. My father stared like his brain couldn't process what he was seeing. And Neela looked like the color drained out of her face so fast she might faint. Ethan took the microphone. I kept my relationship private due to security concerns and business negotiations, he said, voice steady. But privacy should never be confused with shame. He turned slightly toward me, his hand resting at my waist, careful of the bump. Rina isn't someone I saved, he continued. She's someone I chose. She's brilliant. She's built what we're launching tonight. He looked back at the crowd. The Dominion Pathways Fund will be led by Rina Sen as executive director. I stepped forward, the ballroom silent enough to hear my breath. This program exists because talent is everywhere, I said, but opportunity is. We're changing that. I found my father's eyes, held them, and spoke calmly. Sometimes your family doubts you because your dreams scare them. And then I stepped back. The applause was thunder. After the announcement, people crowded around us with congratulations, questions, offers, cameras, and smiles. And then, cutting through the noise like a slow-moving storm, my family approached. My mother was crying. My father looked like he'd aged 10 years in 10 minutes. Armin's eyes met mine, steady, supportive. Neela stayed behind them, suddenly smaller than she'd ever looked. My mother's voice trembled. Rina, we didn't know. I stared at her. You didn't want to know, I said softly. My father swallowed hard. He began. Ethan stepped forward, polite and calm in the way rich men get when they're angry. You demanded proof, he said, handing my father an envelope. So I brought it. My father's hands shook as he held it. What is this? Medical documentation, Ethan said. Paternity confirmation, legal verification, everything you needed before you threw your daughter out. My mother flinched. My father's face cracked just slightly. We don't need to read it, he whispered. Oh, but you do, Ethan said gently, deadly calm. You made your acceptance conditional, so now you can live with that condition. Neela finally spoke, voice thin. I'm sorry, I didn't think. You didn't think I could be loved by someone powerful, I said, turning to her, because you only respect power. Neela's eyes filled. I was jealous, she whispered. I nodded once. I know. My mother stepped forward, hands trembling. Please, she said, come home, let's start over. The word home hit me like a bruise. Starting over sounded beautiful until you remembered what it required, pretending it never happened. I looked at Ethan. He didn't speak. He didn't decide for me. He just held my hand steady. Starting over would mean erasing what you did, I said carefully. I won't do that, my father's voice broke. Then what do? We move forward, I said, but there are rules. I lifted one finger. You don't control my life anymore. A second. You don't insult my work again. A third. And Neela is not welcome around my child until trust is earned, not demanded. Neela's mouth opened slightly, but she didn't argue. For once, she understood the room wasn't hers. My father nodded slowly, each nod costing him pride. We accept, he said. I didn't forgive them in that moment, but I gave them a door, and I told them I would decide whether they deserved to walk through it. 2 months later, my belly was bigger and the headlines had gotten louder. People loved a story where a powerful man chooses an ordinary woman. The public ate it up like romance. But what they didn't see were the quiet parts. The late nights reading scholarship applications, the meetings with educators, the calls with community centers, the planning, the building, the work. One afternoon, a knock came at my office door. Come in, I called, expecting my assistant. My mother stepped inside holding a paper bag. The smell hit me immediately. Food from the neighborhood bakery, the kind she used to bring when I studied late and she wanted to show love without knowing how to say the words. I brought you lunch, she said. I nodded. Thank you. She didn't leave. She looked around the office, floor-to-ceiling windows, framed mission statements, awards already arriving for the foundation's early outreach. This is yours, she whispered, like she couldn't believe it. It's the students', I corrected. I just built the structure. She sat down and cried openly without trying to make it pretty. I was cruel, she said. I thought fear would protect you. I thought strictness would keep you safe. I thought controlling you would keep you respectable. And it didn't, I said softly. She nodded, wiping her cheeks. No, she admitted, it didn't. Then she inhaled, steadying herself. Your father and I want to do something real, she said. Not just apologize. I felt my chest tighten. Our grocery store, she continued. We want to donate it to your program, convert it into a training kitchen and employment program for teens. I stared at her. That store wasn't just income, it was my father's identity, his pride, his control. You're serious? I whispered. She nodded. He said, forcing a child into a family business is wrong. He said he finally understands what you were trying to tell us. Tears rose before I could stop them. Ethan appeared at the doorway. We have the doctor appointment in 30 minutes, he said, then paused when he saw my face. Everything okay? I laughed softly through tears. My mom just gave us our next project, I said. At the doctor's office that afternoon, the technician moved the ultrasound wand and smiled. Well, she said, there's something you should know. Ethan leaned forward, eyes wide. I held my breath. 2 heartbeats, the doctor said. You're having twins. Ethan blinked like he'd misheard. Twins, he repeated. I stared at the screen, my eyes burning. 2 little girls. On the drive to my parents' house for dinner, something we'd started doing weekly, with boundaries and real effort. I held the ultrasound pictures like they were proof of a future that could not be undone. When we walked in, my father was at the dining table with blueprints spread out, explaining to Armin where the training kitchen could go, where the classroom space could be built, how the store could become something bigger than profit. He looked up when we entered, cautious hope in his eyes. How was the appointment? He asked quietly. I didn't answer with words. I handed him the ultrasound picture. He stared at it. Confusion shifted into shock. 2, he whispered. Ethan smiled, voice warm. 2 granddaughters, he said. 2 futures. My father's lips trembled. I was wrong, he said, so quietly it barely carried. About your job, about your choices, about who you are. The room went still. Then he looked up at me, and for once he didn't sound like a man giving orders. He sounded like a man asking. I don't deserve a second chance, he said, but if you give me one, I won't waste it. I nodded slowly. They won't grow up with the version of you who threw me out, I said. They'll grow up with the version of you who learns. My mother poured tea and raised her glass. To Rena and Ethan, she said, voice steady. And to the girls, may they grow up knowing their dreams don't need permission. My father echoed, softer but firm, always. Armin caught my eye and winked like he always did when he wanted to remind me I wasn't alone. And as if they understood the moment, the twins kicked. 2 tiny movements. 2 reminders that the future doesn't belong to the people who doubted you. It belongs to the people who kept building anyway.